Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday. Another edition here of Mean Streets on FTN Network. Chris Meaney as we bring in a Mike Randle Rant, of course, of FTN. You are well aware of Mr. Randle. And I know we're going a little bit late here again today. Mike and I had some meetings. We had a couple things happening this morning. But for the most part, Mean Streets will come at you, I promise, at around noon Eastern every single day. Today on the episode, we want to recap last night's action in Kansas City. We need to talk about Kadarius, Toney, and Skyy more just a touch. Sam Laporta was very, very impressive in my opinion. The Lions pulled out a victory. We want to talk a little bit about some DFS. It's week one. We want to talk some start and sit. Got some props and some picks towards the end of the show. And if you guys have any starter sit questions, now is the time to get them in, as we do have Mike here with us for a few minutes. Welcome in. Happy Friday, good sir. What do you think of last night's action? Is finally we have some football to talk about and some football to preview this weekend. What do you think of last night?
Chris, it was awesome. It was awesome to watch. And the knee-jerk reaction this week, after this week, is always my favorite time of the NFL season because the knee-jerk reaction is strong. And we're already condemning Skyy Moore. We're condemning Kadarius Toney, Jahmyr Gibbs. It's not what you think should happen. It's what you think the coaches will do. So a lot of opinions to get to. It was an exciting game. Great win for Dan Campbell. Money came in late on the Lions just as the game was starting. Your sharps know, right? But Chiefs are going to figure it out. Lions off to a good start. It was just great to have NFL back again.
Yeah, it really was. And the Lions, they pulled it out, man. They lived up to the expectations, the hype. I think they got a little lucky. The offense definitely wasn't great. Had some Kadarius Toney drop, but defensively, they played well and, they took some risks, right? I mean, the fake punt in their own zone, like 15-yard line, whatever it may have been, and then going for it at the end of the game near a midway point, like to give Mahomes, and they said on the broadcast, you're giving Mahomes the ball back at the 45 or their 20. It really doesn't matter. But they were able to, despite not getting that completion, extending the drive or putting the game on ice, so to speak, they gave Mahomes the ball back and they were still able to do it defensively. But you're right. There's a couple things we just want to talk about and address. And one thing I want to say is, we're going to recap this game. You are going to be on FTN Network on Sunday evenings, correct, sir? To recap all the action in case you missed it, some quick hits. You're going to start this Sunday?
Yeah, Chris, I'm a night owl. You know that from the college basketball years, watching Gonzaga and St. Mary's here on the East Coast. So I'm up. I'm full of energy. Sunday night game. So what I'm going to do is recap each of the games quick, 2-minute style, run right through them, highs, lows, injuries, things to think about, things to watch for the week. We're going to cover in about 20, 25 minutes, all of the games, including the Sunday night game. We will go live here on the FTN YouTube channel and give you a little breakdown. Wet your whistle, Chris, if you will, as we head to the start of the week.
Okay, so let's the big takeaways that people want to know about Kadarius Toney, Skyy Moore. Let's just stay on the Kansas City side. We were correct on the show in calling Detroit cover and the under, but I was really big on Skyy Moore. I talked about Skyy Moore with you on our FTN betting show, which you can go back and take a look. You had 3 props. I had 3 picks against the spread with Abby Labar hosting. It was fantastic. It's free to check out. We'll be with you guys every single week. You subscribe to our FTN Network YouTube page. You know all about it. But Skyy Moore, this guy was really nowhere to be found. I mean, 3 targets. There was a target. The first one I thought was a bad pass by Mahomes, completely over his head. And then there was another one that was a little bit of an awful throw. And then a great play of CJ Gardner-Johnson, I thought, got in there and poked the ball away. You may have viewed it as a drop pass. He actually caught it and was turning, and CJ just got in there and poked it away. But Kadarius Toney, I mean, it was on full display for the whole world to see, right? It's the first game. Kadarius Toney has all this hype. Everybody seems to love Kadarius Toney, and he had several drops. He had some issues catching the rock. I think really gave the Lions the win. There was a play towards the end of that game where Toney was wide open. I mean, there was 2. There was wide open where it went off his hands in the defensive touchdown, but there was another one where it was late when Mahomes got the ball back around the 2-minute mark, and Toney was wide open, and he just wasn't able to reel that in. What are your thoughts on Kadarius? Because everybody's going to freak out. He's going to be one of the most dropped players in Yahoo and ESPN when I look at them on Monday. Skyy Moore will be one of them as well. Is this a buy low opportunity in your opinion? Is Rashee Rice the guy there? Is this, hey, this is going to be Travis Kelce when it comes back, and it's going to be like last year, kind of a mess at the wide receiver position? What are your takeaways with the Chiefs offensive? Like, most important, their wide receivers. Like, what do you take away from last night?
Yeah, the takeaway is everybody's got to relax, Chris. It was one game. Let's go person by person. Skyy Moore. had the most snaps on the field of anyone. People are saying that's a negative. It means he can't get open. Guys, who got open last night? Would Mike Evans, if he's on the Chiefs, get open just running down the sideline hoping for lob balls? He's not a guy who gets open that quickly. Skyy Moore had a big catch of about 20, 25 yards, called back because of offensive holding. Skyy Moore, wide open in the first half. Mahomes rolling out, misses him on the lob over the middle. That would have been 15 yards. Put those two together, 4 yards. No one's talking about that. They gave him a jet sweep right away to start the game. They want to get him involved, and then he just wasn't there. He was on the field. He got technically 4 targets. One was called back because of the penalty. That's one less than Toney. I am far more worried about Kadarius Toney. What was the love of Kadarius Toney? Because he's fast? Because he has athleticism? He had 1 year of college production in Florida, just his last year, which we hate as fantasy analysts. Then he goes to the Giants, always hurt, but he had the 1, 10, 11 reception game against the Cowboys. So now we're blowing this out of proportion. Skyy Moore didn't drop a ton of passes yesterday. They found a way to get him involved. And guys, by the way, you drafted Skyy Moore in round 9 of best ball leagues? There's a difference. I'm much more worried about Kadarius Toney. What I will say, Chris, is I was impressed with Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice. I interviewed Jesse Newell, the Kansas City Star beat reporter for the Chiefs. He said he thought Rice would be slow to acclimate. Didn't look like that last night. So the biggest threat for me to Skyy Moore is Rashee Rice. Travis Kelce comes back. Maybe that opens things up. I did not have Skyy Moore getting 1,300 receiving yards this year, but I did think he could creep up to 800, somewhere in that range. Not giving up after week 1. I want to see what happens in week 2.
That's the biggest takeaway for me, too, is that he was at least on the field. He's on the field. He was running routes. He was getting snaps. And I think there's a higher ceiling for him still than MVS, even though MVS is another guy that's on the field quite a bit. He caught both of his targets. 48 receiving yards led the way. We had Justin Watson with 45. Noah Gray had a couple grabs for 31. But clearly this offense was missing their guy in Travis Kelce. I don't think that you can buy low on Kelce. I'd be interested. I would definitely check in on an owner just to see. Sounds like he could return as early as week 2 against Jacksonville. And I would buy Skyy Moore. I'm not in on Kadarius Toney. Rashee Rice was one of our favorites on the show to draft late in best ball or in deeper formats just to have him. But I did personally steer people wrong with Skyy Moore, starting him, wondering if Christian Watson was going to play, and Albert's in the house, and we just got news that he is ruled out. So that was the biggest thing yesterday for me. I know I started Skyy Moore in a couple leagues because I thought that Watson was trending in the wrong direction, and he is now officially ruled out. So I don't know. I didn't get any points from Skyy Moore, but I get 0.4 more than I would have had if I rolled out Christian Watson, I suppose. Nothing really else for me on the Kansas City side besides I do want to say that Pacheco, although he struggled to run the rock, last year, he started to get involved down the stretch of the season, running targets, catching passes. There was a game against Cincinnati in the AFC Championship game. I think he had 4 or 5 grabs in that game. Yesterday, he had 4 targets and 4 catches for 31 receiving yards. It actually wasn't Jerick McKinnon. He came in the red zone package. He had that trickery with Kadarius Toney that didn't work out. But McKinnon just had the 1 catch for 10 yards on 2 targets. So maybe Pacheco, I don't want to call him a bell cow. I don't think he's going to get 35, 40 grabs. But I think, he could flirt with 25, maybe 2 a game in this offense. I think it's pretty valuable. On the Detroit side, it's all anybody wanted to talk about last night on social media. I saw it. I get it. Jahmyr Gibbs looked awesome. He looked way better than Dave Montgomery, fresh. Like when he just hits a certain speed, look out. He's going to be a problem for opposing defenses. It was his first game as a rookie. That's one thing I want to say. This is his first game as a rookie. I thought Dave Montgomery did an okay job in pass protection. I think that's very important for a rookie to be able to pick up blitzes and things. There was one where Nick Bolton just completely ran over Dave Montgomery. Imagine if there was Gibbs in there. Yeah. But this is how the offense kind of rolled last year as the short yardage pound, on the ground with like 1 or 2 yards. Montgomery efficiently is not great. 74 yards on 21 carries. It's 3.5 yards per pop. Gibbs, 42 on 7 carries, had a long run of 18, 6 yards per carry, and had the 2 catches that the couple targets that he had that he reeled in for 18 receiving yards. Is this how it's going to play out all year? Or is it, listen, it's just one game. We will see more usage from Gibbs moving forward, because last year it was Jamal Williams who had all those touches inside the red zone. Montgomery converts for a touchdown. Swift was a guy they ran between the 20s, but pulled off near the red zone. I think there's a buy low opportunity for Gibbs, but do you feel like that may be something that we see all year between these 2 backs?
His usage, Chris, was exactly what I projected it would be. People see those explosive plays and they judge the game as if it was a fantasy football contest. Oh, you got to put him back in. It's not happening. They signed David Montgomery. They trust David Montgomery. He's getting all of the goal line touches. He's going to be the guy that's going to plod for them, and Gibbs is going to be used as a specialist. There is no chance that Gibbs is taking over this backfield from David Montgomery. They want to keep running backs healthy, and they're not going to turn everything over to Jahmyr Gibbs. Looked explosive, looked dynamic, would have had a touchdown if he didn't fall, by the way, earlier in the game on that. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a shared backfield. But I don't think there's any change in Gibbs's role. I think what you saw last night is what is going to happen. They signed David Montgomery and they trust him, and they trust him in pass protection. It is very difficult for a rookie running back to come in and be the primary back on passing downs blocking. It's just a difficult skill. We've seen it with tight ends, rookie tight ends as well. But I'm encouraged by his usage. I think it will get better. But no, am I ranking Jahmyr Gibbs as a top 12 fantasy running back in the near future in any of the weeks? No, I'm not. And that's not how I had him ranked. I think David Montgomery, he's a plotter. Everyone just sees it's 3.7 yards versus 6.5. It doesn't work that way. The NFL coaches don't think that way. We've seen it time and time again. So frustrated, yes. Surprised, no.
And the offensive line is just as good as last year. It's really strong. They find ways to open up some holes. I think if you're hurting at the running back position, there's probably a Gibbs owner that's panicking right away. People overreact with all of these things. I think what we saw last night is going to be very similar. You know, if Gibbs gets into a rhythm at times, maybe he could, get more touches and it's close to a 50-50, but 21 rush attempts versus 7. I don't want to say it's going to continue like that, but I could see a 60-40. I could see a 70-30 in terms of rush attempts, but clearly Gibbs is he is a real weapon through the air, and he looked good and explosive with the ball in his hands. I want to give some love to Sam Laporta. I had him ranked as tight end 13. I feel like I'm going to rank this guy as a top 12 tight end every single week. That was just one game from him. He's on the field running routes, good hands, just looks like a real player. Your boy Amon-Ra, 9 targets, 6 grabs, 71 yards, had a touchdown, something he didn't do a whole lot last year, found the end zone early on. And then Josh Reynolds, who I know you talked up with Josh Gross. Man, how great is Josh Gross?
Oh, tremendous. Yeah.
Nailing his first 2 picks by halftime. We had Reynolds on this show as well, 80 yards on 4 catches for 80 there and 7 targets. Okay, enough with that. We dove into it quite a bit. We do see some questions here. Maybe we can get into here in a second. Kyle Woods is in the house. And when Kelsey comes back, he expects a rising tide lifts all boats theme in KC. The whole team they absolutely did. And Kelsey will help everybody, even though you think, wow, no Kelsey and Skyy Moore didn't do this. Like, Kelsey will help everybody in the offense. He's always going to garner attention. Like Mahomes said after the presser, he believes in Kadarius and Skyy Moore, and those guys will have to step up all year, and they'll be in situations to step up. I want to show you the board that we showed everybody in the FTN betting show. So Kansas City didn't cover. It was Detroit who covered again. What do you make of this schedule for week 1? What games and matchups do you have your eye on? Is there a particular player or two that you really like in a matchup this week that you're looking forward to seeing? What do you got? Week 1, there's always full of surprises.
Yeah, very interesting. Let's go down the list. I love this board here by our guy, George. First off, Atlanta, Carolina. Jonathan Mingo. I think DJ Chark was ruled out of this game, and Adam Thielen is questionable. Yes. I'm a big Jonathan Mingo guy. Love the draft capital. Love the athleticism. I think he could really have a nice performance there in that first game. Next one I'll look at is Minnesota -6 versus Tampa Bay. Minnesota last year, Chris, and I love them last year, but they went 8-0 in 1-score games, 6 points against Tampa Bay. No one's on Tampa Bay here. Not real sure how Minnesota's going to do. That's a big spread that jumps out. We've talked earlier in the betting show, Tennessee getting 3 points against New Orleans. Big fan of them there. Pittsburgh at home getting points against San Francisco. That defense with Pittsburgh is legit. Interesting to note, yes, I know that Arizona's starting Joshua Dobbs. Yes, I know that they don't look great and they could be tanking here, but that line has not moved, Chris, at 7. That's a big, big number. I don't know if I'm laying 7 points there. May want to tease that down, actually, if you're going to go with a bet. The other one that's really interesting, survival pools, people have been asking me, Baltimore -10 versus Houston. Our model here, Frank Breaker, our FTN model, likes Baltimore in this game. I don't know. It's the game that everyone's on, which always makes me nervous, but tough to see CJ Stroud in his first game on the road going in to beat Baltimore.
Yeah, I think it's a very tough spot for CJ Stroud, and I would have a lean. I know it's a lot of points, but I would have a lean to Baltimore maybe covering that game at 9.5. Some things I'm looking forward to seeing here, just like some storylines. I want to see Atlanta's offense. How many touches is Bijan going to get? Opportunities. Tyler Algier going to get like 8 or 10 carries. Is that something that's going to happen right away? I don't know. I don't think so, but we'll see how that looks. Yeah, and Bryce is in a tough spot too, with Thielen being questionable and DJ Chark being ruled out. Looking forward to seeing Anthony Richardson. How many design runs are in this offense for Anthony Richardson? We only saw 3 throughout the preseason in a matchup here against Jacksonville at home. So I want to see Anthony Richardson, what he does in his first start. I think that the Jags are certainly one of my favorite spreads. I know it's a lot on the road, divisional matchup, but I do like Jacksonville quite a bit. We'll get into that. Baker Mayfield. How's the offense going to look in Tampa Bay? Without Tom Brady, is it going to be at a slower pace, run the rock with Dave Cannell's OC coming over? He's talked a lot about Rachaad White being a threat and a 3-down back. Is that actually going to be the case here? How many opportunities is he going to get? New look offense a little bit with Derek Carr under center for the Saints. Love the Pittsburgh and San Fran matchup. Should be phenomenal, right? 2 defenses that are just absolutely amazing. So really looking forward to seeing Kenny Pickett go up right away against a Super Bowl squad. Aspirations for sure defensively. They can bring it with the best of anybody. You alluded to Washington and Arizona. Yeah, we'll see. It's Washington is not going to be favored by a touchdown all year long. So it just goes to show, I guess, how bad this Arizona squad could be. Chicago and Green Bay, DJ Moore, Jordan Love, right? We're going to get a look at Jordan Love, but already shorthanded without Christian Watson on the squad. We'll talk about some of the other weapons on the team, of course, but already ruled out with a hamstring injury, and he struggled with injuries last year. So here we go again, potentially with Christian Watson. The Raiders and the Broncos, new offense, new look. Here with Sean Payton. They were the lowest scoring team in the NFL last season. Jerry Jeudy, don't expect him to play. Tim Patrick, again, just like last year, unfortunately for him, we're not going to be able to see him in a Broncos uniform this season. Philly in New England. We talked about this matchup on the FTN NFL betting show. Tom Brady, a big halftime there. Giving some love to him. I'm sure the Pats are going to bring it. The Chargers in Miami could be the funnest game on the slate. One of the highest totals, over 50 points. Should see a lot of offense there. Seattle, no Cooper Kupp. What wide receiver are we going to see step up after Tyler Higbee? Dallas and Dak have owned the Giants. Just popped up that we have Waller added to the injury report due to a hamstring issue. So we'll see. That's not what you want to hear. Waller's had a lot of injuries over the past couple of years. Everybody already calling him a fantasy MVP before he's even stepped foot on the field in the regular season. Then Buffalo and New York there with the Jets. Rodgers and company. And I know you had some love for, actually not really a lot of love. I know you like Josh Allen a lot, but you're kind of thinking that this could be a bad spot for him. And it should be. It's a really good defense that the Jets have.
Yeah, Chris, I always trend to the under when you're looking at interdivision games favored on the road. They end up knowing each other's familiarity, especially, Chris, the numbers and the data shows when you get to the second matchup of the year, that happens a lot. But in this one, the games have played around 36 points per game over the last 8 matchups between the Bills and the Jets, and that includes a big 42-17 blowout by Buffalo. So this game has historically been slow. You're dealing with Aaron Rodgers coming over from Green Bay, where the last 2 years they have ranked the slowest team per pace here at FTN data, 29 and 30 seconds per play. Chris, he runs the show. He's not going to come over and have a fast-paced offense. He is who he is at this point, multiple-year MVP, Super Bowl champ, etc. So I think he's going to slow it down. I think he's going to do all the, green 30 calls, changing things at the line, which means less opportunities for that Bills offense. I also believe in the Jets defense. Sauce Gardner, Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. I just think it's going to be a lower scoring game, which is why I'm going under here with Josh Allen's passing yards. Talked about it on the betting show, but I think it's a close game. I think it's a close battle. Jets could win. Bills could win. I just don't think it's going to be high scoring. I really don't. It reminds me of an old Steelers Ravens game, something like that. Going to be very, very close. My guy James Cook could get a lot of passes out of the backfield. I think the scoring and the production's a little bit lower than you think.
That's something else I'm going to have my eye on too. Cook, like what's the usage look like for him? I expect Damian Harris to be the goal line back. And is that going to be the case right away? We did see him get a goal line touch, which he converted into a touchdown in his first preseason game in the Bills' final preseason game. All right, before we get out of here, I'm going to have 3 spreads, 3 totals, 3 money line plays. I got a fun parlay and a teaser, and I also have some props towards the end of the show. We'll get Randle out of here on this. Just like we'll talk a little DFS. I know you and I, when the pricing first came out, DraftKings week 1, we talked about it then. Things have changed since then. I have a couple, like maybe some low end players and cheap wide receivers, maybe hit them high, hit them low quarterback. I'll throw some names at you and see what you think here. We do have Rushman in the house. Good news on Watson since he was on the bench, right? Rest well, Mr. Watson. Yeah, I think the process was right. Like we talked about, if you are a Watson owner and if you've watched the show or listened to Mean Streets on iTunes and Spotify, you probably have some Watson shares, and we won some consolation brackets with them last year. Hopefully we can turn those into championships here, but it's not a great start for Mr. Watson. And again, the process was right to find another option because, as we just mentioned, he is ruled out of this week 1 game against the Bears. I want to go over quickly the DFS schedule. FTN Daily, follow on Twitter. Just tweeted out earlier the schedule here. We have stuff coming at you every single day, from showdown shows with our guy David Jones and an article. He's going to be with you behind the paywall. So if you're looking to be part of the FTN Daily family, you can use the promo code FTN Wins. We'll save you a little bit of cash, but he's going to be with you live streams on 7 Eastern with Sam Shorter, who's super sharp as well. You were doing some best ball videos with Sam over the course of the summer. We got the Chalk Report on Tuesdays with Alex Blickel, the Read Option game-by-game preview with Adam Pfeiffer, which is just absolutely phenomenal. Adam Strangest, the FanDuel breakdown on Wednesday. We have the wide receiver cornerback matchup, which is my favorite tool that we have, and we have a lot of great ones courtesy of Jeff Ratcliffe. We have the Thursday night showdown with Jones will be with you and Schroedery as well. Friday, Vlad just came out with his article, 10 under 10%. I don't know if you took a look at that. There's some really appealing names on that list from Vlad. The Stack Report from Blickel today. The DFS core plays from Schroedery on Saturday. We'll have Tenacious Jones, David Jones's targets. The two-gun breakdown from Two-Gun himself. $7 million profit, 4-time millionaire maker. Are you kidding me with that stuff? I mean, the guy is from the future. And then on Sunday, we'll have the Sunday morning update with Schroedery, the live stream, 10:30 Eastern with Blickel, Two-Gun, and Jones, and Strangest will be with you for the Sunday Night Football breakdown as well. Man, talk about content as you just went away. Your camera went away, so I don't know if you're still there or not, but talk about content. Mike, and a lot of good stuff there. Are you still with us, Mr. Randle? Maybe not. I think we may have lost him, so we may need to say goodbye to him. And if he comes back, then we'll get him back in here. But we'll remove him for now, and we'll get going here. And just bear with us. We'll ride. When Randle gets back, we'll bring him back in. Maybe I'll save this is what I wanted to bring up with him. We'll do some quick DFS stuff here on the show. I think my goal is to kind of create a value lineup. I used to do this over at FNTSY. Everybody really knows the studs. So I wanted to come with some value plays, and I got a couple at each position. I'm going to start at the quarterback position, just kind of hit you high and hit you low if you're playing DraftKings. So Trevor Lawrence, I think, for me, he's a quarterback that I want to live with. The most expensive is Lamar. Against Houston, it's a good spot. Jalen Hurts on the road, New England, good defense. Justin Fields, I think, is a touch overpriced at 7-7. It's a good spot against Green Bay. He's really matchup proof. We saw that last year in matchups against New England and Buffalo down the stretch of the season, which he was great. Joe Burrow, a little risky, rate 7-1 on the road in Cleveland, dealing with the injury. I know he's going to play, but may not be 100%. Herbert, I don't mind at 6-9 in a high up tempo offense game. Even Tua at 6-7. I think both of those quarterbacks will be pretty popular, and Randle is back, so we'll bring him in and we'll have a quarterback discussion here. Welcome in, good sir.
Thunderstorm here in New Jersey, massive thunderstorm right now. Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Oh no, all good. I'm glad you're back. We'll get you out of here in a couple minutes. So we just had talk DFS. We went over the schedule of what to expect if you're part of the FTN Daily family, and just really hitting up the quarterback position. I was kind of hitting high with a match with the spot here in Trevor Lawrence at 6-5 against the Colts, and then low with Sam Howell at 4-9. I know you've taken a look at the quarterback position. Are you spending up for a guy like Lamar? Or do you want to get involved with the Chargers and Dolphins game with Tua and with Herbert on the other side? Hurts on the tough spot on the road, Burrow on the tough spot on the road in Cleveland and New England. What are you doing at the quarterback position here this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going with my guys. I believe in fantasy. You trust your guys. That's why I had a ton of exposure to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Very happy about that. So Justin Herbert, I'm targeting him. I love this offense with Kellen Moore. I love the weapons. They're healthy. Keenan Allen's healthy. Mike Williams, all over that. Number 2, I like Sam Howell. I have him ranked as my 5th quarterback. Why? I was impressed what I saw in the preseason. Yes, Chris, that's narrative based. I get that, but we don't have a lot to go on with Sam Howell because he only attempted 19 pass attempts in the NFL in his career. So I like what I see. I like Jahan Dotson, and I also like Brian Robinson in this game. The thought that Eric Bieniemy here is going to just turn Antonio Gibson into Jerick McKinnon. Why can't that be Brian Robinson? So I'm sticking with my guys. I like Sam Howell. I like Justin Herbert. I like Washington in general. I am avoiding players like Lamar Jackson, who could be fantastic, but I anticipate that they're going to win by double digits or more. And I'm avoiding Jalen Hurts on the road against Belichick just because it could be lower than you would expect for that value. I want value for my quarterback position. I usually pay up for wide receiver, so I'm going to be hunting for value. Highest I would go is Justin Herbert because I think you have to have a part of that Dolphins-Charger game. You can fade it as a contrarian, but if it's good chalk, bad chalk, if the game explodes, you need exposure. I'll go with Herbert at home.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Everything that you just said, really, with the quarterbacks on the road. And I do like the Eagles to win the game, but I think it could be a struggle offensively. There could be some rust. Hurts didn't have any reps, new offensive coordinator as well. So there could be some growing pains for the offense. Now, I threw up some running backs here, and I think that's a way. I don't know how different you're going to be if you go with Eckler, if you go with Raheem Mostert, and you avoid those quarterbacks, and maybe you just get a piece of the running backs in that game because, again, it's a high total. I expect it to go over. I think both teams can get to 30 points, and I think it really will be a very fantasy-friendly game. And Eckler is my favorite running back to spend up for this week. You got CMC at 8-7, tough spot. I know you're fading him and his prop against the Steelers. And Nick Chubb, I think, could be. I like Nick Chubb. We'll give him some love later. I think at 8-2, he may be under-owned a touch. Bijan Robinson at 8K. I know he's somebody that you really liked. I think he is going to be pretty popular, and they definitely want to run the rock. And Carolina's in a tough spot already, depleted offensively, and the offensive line is not in a great spot. But Brian Robinson, glad you brought him up, 5-1, because I think Howell will be popular. I think Dawson will be popular. Maybe Terry is that contrarian play. He's going to play. He's going to suit up, but maybe just – and a team that's at home and 7-point favorites against this Arizona squad, I think they could lean on him. I put Deion Jackson at 4-1, although I don't think it's a phenomenal play, but at 4-1, it could be interesting in tournaments. Mostert is 5-4, and Eckler, like I mentioned, is that back that I want to spend up at 8-4. And I think Dobbins, who's not on this list, maybe fading Lamar. Everybody would want to play Lamar or Odell, and everybody seems to like Zay Flowers. Maybe just rolling with J.K. Dobbins at the running back position. Yeah. The Texans have been brutal against the run for years, Mike.
Yeah, what I want, Chris, is I want security. There's a lot of unknowns on this slate. I mean, Javonte Williams versus Samaje Perine. Do we know exactly how Dameon Pierce is going to do against the Ravens? Kenneth Walker, with him questionable, possibly Zach Charbonnet. So I'm going to go with someone like an Eckler. I'm going to go with someone that I know there's security. That's why I like Robinson, because I know he is the starting running back for Washington and is going to be involved as much as possible. So what I'm doing is I don't want to play a guessing game with timeshares. Aaron Jones versus A.J. Dillon. Now that Watson's out, I guess you could go one or the other there. I want to avoid that as much as possible. I want the touches. I want the volume. That's why the players you just listed are very valuable indeed. Even Chubb in what could be a bad matchup, we're not sure.
Yeah, it really could be. Rush_man's talking about Brian Robinson could be a big role. And you know what? We saw him catch some passes in the preseason. It was just preseason, but we did see a role for him catching passes. So let's not rule him out to be a guy that's it's not going to be all Antonio Gibson. But one thing we know is that Brian Robinson is going to run on first and second down, and he will be the goal line back there. And it is a really good spot. And I do agree here, King in the house, they did quite well against the Ravens last year. They did. And I really like Trevor Lawrence. There's no secret. I think he's in for a bigger step forward, man. We saw it in year 2 with Doug Peterson. And Doug Peterson, he's the quarterback whisperer, man. How did he make that work with Carson Wentz? He got MVP votes despite blowing out his knee in week 14, 15, and en route to the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Here's some wide receivers that I jotted down. Of course, again, that matchup, Tyreek Hill up at the top, probably one of my favorites to really spend up on. Mike Williams, I think at 5.7 is a touch underpriced. Dotson at 5K. Ridley, I think, will be popular. If you want to be contrarian in tournaments, Kirk may be the way to go. Evans at 6.3. He's always been boomer bust. It's a good spot against the Vikings. I think Baker may just sling it. He may, if the Vikings are scoring points, we may see Baker chuck a little bit too. I think it could be a very fantasy-friendly game. Shaheed as a dart throw, tournaments only. he was dealing with a hamstring injury and he didn't get any reps in, but I think he's going to be the deep guy in this offense. Mingo, we discussed earlier at 3-2. Reed now at 3K comes into play with Dubs looking like he's going to suit up. Christian Watson ruled out. Mims is 3K as well. And then Van Jefferson is 4-7. Is anybody on that list pique your interest?
It does. I love Jahan Dotson, stacking him with Sam Howell on multiple lineups. I am going to fade Ridley. Not that I don't think Ridley can be very good, but I just think the price point here and the exposure to Ridley is somewhere where I want to go in the opposite direction. I love Jonathan Mingo. 3-2 is a great value. If you want to spend up for Eckler, if you want to spend up for Chubb, that's the area you can be at wide receiver. Javon Reed, absolutely. You nailed it. No Christian Watson. Is Romeo Doubs going to play? That's a game there. They're going to have to score points against the Bears. Justin Fields going to be running all over the place. And Marvin Mims at 3K. I wouldn't invest too heavily, Chris. My one word of advice is I don't think you want to go Mims and Reed. I think you want to pick which guy you like here. One or the other, right? So I don't want to build a lineup here where I have Reed and Mims as two of my players. That's a little too thin for me. But pick the guy or two you like here. I could, for example, go for Justin Jefferson, then Jahan Dotson, and then Marvin Mims, something like that where I'm able to spread it out. But yeah, there's a lot of good names there.
Yeah, it's just we're bargain hunting here. I don't recommend rolling 3 of these guys out, 2 of these guys out. If you're looking for a cheap play at a 3K or so, they could be some options for you. Do you expect, as we transition over to tight ends, I have Higbee on here at 4.8, but I expect him to be extremely popular. Hawkinson at 5.9, Dulcich at 4K, Musgrave at 2.9. Again, same sort of deal here with Green Bay. There's no Kelsey on the slate. There's no Waller on this slate. Andrews is questionable, but it's 6.2. If you're not spending up, maybe just spend down and punt at the position. And Musgrave was a guy who was running a lot of routes with Jordan Love in the preseason, catching some passes. And we've already talked a great deal here at length about the Green Bay issue at wide receiver with Watson and Dubs. What are you doing at tight end, good sir? And really just talk to me about the Rams. Like do you feel like, are you even interested in a pass catching player for the Rams, though Cooper Kupp?
If I am, it's going to be Higbee. Because Higbee always is able to perform, whether Kupp is there or not. He's been solid, 60 receptions or so each of the last 2 years. I'm a little cooler on Dulcich. I have a lot of exposure to him in best ball, but Adam Troutman is starting there. So what you're banking on is, even though Adam Troutman is going to be the starting tight end for Denver, that Dulcich is actually going to get some play here because we assume Judy is out. It's a lot of ifs in that statement. And he's at 4K. Who's at 4.2K is David Njoku. So David Njoku could be the second best target in Cleveland in a passing game. In that game against the Bengals, we saw a connection, already scored a touchdown in the preseason, uber athletic guy. I'd rather have him, Chris, at 4.2 than Dulcich there. And Luke Musgrave, God bless him, could be great. We saw last night, though, with Sam Laporta. Sometimes it takes a while for the consistent production, so I'm going to fade Musgrave there.
Man, the thunder scared the crap out of me. How did you pull that off? You were just talking, nothing phased you.
Oh, it's crazy.
Sounds like
that's why the lightning went right outside here. I'm like, what player did I talk about when that happened?
All right, we'll get you out of here. We went a little bit longer than I thought, so really do appreciate you. I know there's some questions here from some people we'll get to. That's a Dotson one for me over Brendan Ayuk, but maybe you're Ayuk against the Steelers. Are you feeling that one?
Boy, I like both. That's a great question, Albert. I like both of them. I like Dotson. I will actually lean Ayuk. I am buying into what he did. I think it was after week 6 or week 8 last. Chris, he was like the wide receiver 8 from week 6 on or something like that. He was great. I'm buying in on Ayuk. I'm lower on Deebo Samuel. So I'll take Ayuk, but I like them both. It's very close.
Yeah, I'm down on Deebo as well. I think he can be okay in this game, but I think Ayuk was the better buy in fantasy. A quiet 1,000 yards from him, more fantasy points per game than Deebo last season as well. And then one more, we get you out of here. Watson's out. Is Gibson, Dylan, Nico Collins. What do you think? He wants some safe points.
Easy. Because Chris, because that last line, the answer is easy. It's A.J. Dillon. Because the Bears' rush defense was horrific last year. Now their wide receivers are down. It's still Jordan Love. I think it's going to be a conservative game plan. The answer is Dillon for me, if you want safe points in that matchup.
Yeah, good call. And you do. You wanted some safe points. Nico Collins is wide receiver I like, but young quarterback, Stroud, and we talked about it. First matchup of his NFL career, and he has to go against that Ravens defense in
Yeah.
Baltimore.
Mhm.
It's a really tough spot for him. Mike, appreciate it, dude. Thank you so much. Good luck with all the thunder and all the lightning. Hopefully, stay safe, dude. We need you. Check Mike out Sunday evening. He's going to recap all the games, a little bit of a fantasy spin. So again, make sure you're subscribed to our FTN Network YouTube page, and he will give you all the goods. And of course, we'll be back on Monday to talk some waiver wire stuff. All right, Mike, appreciate you, dude. You can bounce out at any moment that you want to.
You got it, man. Thanks.
All right. Mike Randle there of FTN Network. Always love chopping it up with Mike. So if you guys have any more questions, by all means, get them. I'll help you out. I can give some projections over at FTN Fantasy, some start and sit stuff. Yes, Montgomery. I mean, Montgomery having a lot of share, got the touchdown. I was worried too, right? He wasn't that efficient. We talked about it at the start of the show, the usage. I think it's going to be something that we see. We could see a little bit more Gibbs moving forward. He's just his first game. He definitely looked a lot better than Montgomery, but they are going to use Montgomery. They're going to use Montgomery like they used Jamal Williams. They have a good offensive line. They run the rock pretty well. And I know he wasn't efficient, but he picked up some blitzes, which is something that we got to give him credit for, as opposed to Gibbs just being a young rookie. I know Nick Bolton ran him over there earlier, but he wasn't that efficient, but he's going to get the goal line work. And they ran the clock out with him, right? I don't want to say run the clock out, but they did give him those carries towards the end of the game. So you got your touchdown and away you move on. One thing here, who do you think won this trade? Got accepted yesterday. Cousins, Higgins, Kyle Pitts, Jordan Addison for AJ Brown, Waller, and Aaron Rodgers. Okay, yeah, a lot to break down. Want some context for the rest of your team, but I think I like the left side. The best player in this deal is AJ Brown. Higgins is close to AJ. Definitely like Waller more than Pitts. Like Cousins more than Aaron Rodgers a touch. But Higgins and Jordan Addison, man, I think I would have told you right side immediately until I heard this hamstring thing pop up for Darren Waller. I'm sure he's fine, but man, it's not how you want to start. It's back-to-back years now for Darren Waller. I think the left side is probably the best side, right? Even though Kyle Pitts, there is a drop off, in my opinion, for Pitts and Waller. Cousins and Rodgers, it's kind of a wash, but I think there's a higher ceiling there for Cousins. It's more of a pass happy offense. Higgins, a touch below AJ Brown, and plus you're getting Jordan Addison there. So I do like that left side. Okay, a little bit of context. You already have Lamar with Diggs and Lockett and Mike Williams. Yeah. Is this a 2-quarterback league? Because you don't need a second quarterback when you have Lamar. You're going to roll him out every single week. That's one thing that I'll always stress, in a 10-team, 12-team with one quarterback that you're starting, just start all those 8 guys every single week. Lamar, Burrow, Fields, Lawrence. Of course, you're starting the big 3 and Hurts, Mahomes, and Allen, and then Herbert's in there as well. Just start these guys. Start them every single week and don't think twice about it. Okay. I think I got to the questions. If you guys have any more, what's your main team? Would you share it? I'm not sure if that's for me or not. If it is, I could share at another time my main team. But I got some picks and some props I wanted to share with you guys. And we'll start here with TJ Hawkinson. I like TJ Hawkinson over 4.5 catches here in the matchup against the Bucks. TJ Hawkinson, in the 10 games with Minnesota last year, 86 targets. He caught 60 of them for 519 yards. It's 6 catches per game. Travis Kelce led all tight ends with 6.4 catches per game and 110 catches at the position. If you pace out what Hawkinson did in the 10 games with Minnesota, that's 102 grabs, which is one more than he had in his sophomore season. So I don't think that that's unrealistic to think that he could have had 100 catches over a full course of the season with Minnesota. Hawkinson, at least 8 targets in 7 of his first 9 games with the Vikings. He was leaned on heavily in that playoff game against the Giants. He racked up 10 grabs on 11 targets for 129 yards. It was his second 100-yard game, 4th game with double-digit targets, and 3rd with double-digit catches while wearing the purple uni for the Vikings. The fact that he was traded to Minnesota halfway through the season and had an immediately like a 21% target share says a lot that they wanted to incorporate him in the offense right away. Now it's year 2. He got paid. He wasn't with the team throughout camp, but it wasn't a knee injury or a hamstring or a shoulder. It was an ear infection. So he's ready to go. And I think there's room for him to grow in Kevin O'Connell's offense, pass-happy offense. You look at last year, I don't want to dive too much into last year's numbers because defenses change, of course, but the Bucs were inside the top 12 and allowing catches and receiving yards to the tight end position. So Hawkinson at over 4.5, used the prop shop to get the best possible number, -110. I did have Darren Waller here at 4.5. Now, this does seem a little risky, so maybe wait this one out and see what happens with Darren Waller. My thinking here was this 4.5 was too low. And I thought when we get closer to Sunday Night Football, it would creep up to maybe 5.5. It's -105 at BetMGM. Very small sample size, but he picked up 4 targets and 3 grabs in the opening drive with Daniel Jones in that preseason game, the only preseason game that they played together, which was week 2. I fully believe the offense is going to run through Darren Waller. It's like Kansas City, right? Travis Kelce, and then all these other random wide receivers, Darren Waller, and all these other random wide receivers with the Giants. Now, if he doesn't play, I'll probably just stay clear because there's a lot going on. There's a lot of slot wide receivers. You got Jalen Hyatt and Slayton stretching the field. I think the guy after Waller will be Isaiah Hodgins, but I fully believe the offense will run through Waller. Dabo made this trade to get Darren Waller. I'm a big fan of what he has to offer. Health, clearly, obviously, is a concern yet again for him, but over 4.5 catches was a prop that I was going to come at you guys. So we'll see. We may have to play that one out. Maybe it'd be a last minute, a little bit risky. Depends on what you like, how risky you like to get with some of your bets. But even if the game gets out of hand, Dak's never lost to the Giants. I know the Giants defense has improved. Got young corners that I think Dak can exploit, but the run defense should be pretty solid. And if it does get out of hand, I think Waller could maybe a garbage time cover or something like that. But I think he's going to get targeted early and often when he's healthy and on the field. DJ Moore is another guy that I like here, over 49.5 receiving yards, -112. I forget the book. I think it may be Caesars, but again, the prop shop is your friend. It's a free tool. Link inside the description of this video. Get the best number, save you a lot of time and a lot of cash. I am going to preseason again. This isn't really all about the preseason, but 3 targets with Justin Fields, caught 2 of them for 102 yards. They were simple throws. Fields made them look very difficult. It was like a bubble screen that he brought to the house and another one that he was offline and Fields made the throw. That's what Fields can do for a quarter, or that's what Moore, can do for a quarterback. I don't expect the same leap from Allen when they brought in Stephon Diggs and from Hurts when they brought in A.J. Brown. But what do you throw last year? 2,200 yards, 2,200 yards. I think you can get to 1,000 more. You're bringing in DJ Moore, who's inside the top 7 in receiving yards at the wide receiver position since 2019. He's always been among the leaders in yards after the catch. 14.5 yards per catch over the course of his career is a healthy number. 65 yards per game over the course of his career, a healthy number. It's not like he's had great quarterback play. Cam Newton, the 1 year after his MVP season, which I thought was an outlier campaign, not really accurate over the course of his career. I mean, Kyle Allen to Sam Darnold to Baker Mayfield. There's a lot of just poor quarterbacks he's played with, and I know there'll be some growing pains, but they're going to get him involved. And it really doesn't take a lot to get to this number. As I mentioned, the 2 catches that he had in the preseason, he topped that number at 49.5. So I'm taking the over at 49.5 receiving yards. And then I had 2 more here for you. Jahan Dotson, I just think it's Jahan Dotson season. How we've talked about him so much on this show over the past couple of years. 7 touchdowns last year, was tied for the most among rookie wide receivers, and he only played 12 games. 7 red zone targets, 4 behind Terry McLaurin. He played 5 fewer games than Terry. He was used deep down the field as well. 13.98 ADOT, average depth of target. Ranked 4th behind Gabe Davis, George Pickens, and Chris Olave among wide receivers with 60 targets. He had 14.9 yards per catch, inside the top 10 at the wide receiver position. And last year, he only averaged 5 targets per game. If you look overall at his numbers, 5 targets per game, you're not super excited about that. But 35 targets over his last final games, that's 7 targets per game. In those 5 games, he scored 3 touchdowns. He had the century mark once and topped 70 yards twice. So 3 times he topped 70 yards. He also started very strong last year, 4 touchdowns in his first 4 games, 22 targets over those 4 games. So again, more than 5 before suffering an injury that kept him sidelined till week 10, but limited till week 3. Those couple games that he came back, he was limited, and then he started to play more down the stretch. Sounds like Terry's good to go. Not concerned. I'd like to see Terry on the field. Right, he's going to garner top coverage, and Dotson's going to get some looks from Sam Howell. It looked like they had a rapport in the preseason, week 17 last year against the Cowboys. Actually, it was week 18, and the matchup is as good as it gets. Right, for Arizona, we love that matchup, don't we? And then one more here. and it is Nick Chubb. And we'll recap here through the 5. Is another guy that I've been talking a lot about here, and I think he will be involved through the air. We just haven't seen it over the past couple of years, but we certainly saw it early on in his career. I think we got all the picks up there, yeah, for you guys. We'll remove the banner just in case we aren't hiding one. We're hiding dots in there. So those that are watching our YouTube page or listening on iTunes, we'll roll through them here. So for Chubb, I mean, the first year, his rookie campaign, this is a guy that racked up 17 of his 20 catches in the final 7 games, just over 2 per game over those last 10 games. Sophomore season looked like he was going to be a big player through the air. 25 grabs in his first 8 games, on pace for 50 receptions that season. Only finished with 36, but they brought in Kareem Hunt at the halfway point, and we know Hunt was a good pass catching back over the past couple of years. He's gone. That's 40 plus targets from this offense gone. Jerome Ford, doesn't have much on the resume. And also, Pierre Strong Jr. just learning the offense. I don't think he'll get a lot of touches here. Deshaun Watson only played 6 games with Chubb last season. Chubb did have 10 catches in those 6 games. The duo hooked up for 5 grabs on 6 targets for 45 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown in their final game together last season. So maybe a sign of things to come here. The over 12.5 receiving yards for Nick Chubb in a matchup against the Cincinnati Bengals. And we know how good of a pure runner he is. 1,000 yards every single year besides his rookie campaign, never fewer than 5 yards per carry. We don't have to pull our hair out when we're in the red zone and it's Kareem Hunt near the goal line. It should be Chubb. If they're in his 3rd and 6 situation, I think we could see Chubb. Maybe not on every 3rd down, but I do believe we'll see him, especially inside the red zone as well. So the over 12.5 receiving yards there. So check it in to see if anybody, Hawkinson, if anybody has any questions or any concerns with these props before we get out of here. Hawkinson could be top 10 in this year. He really could be. I would not be shocked if he was tight end 1. I expect Kelce to come back week 2, but if he misses any time, it really could happen. From a PPR standpoint, he was used differently in Detroit, wasn't used deep down the field, but he was used, which just really wasn't the case in Detroit. I got Kelce, Kupp, and Watson all in the same. Oh, my goodness. Well, at least you don't have Jonathan Taylor, Big Toney. Tough start. Man, the Watson thing really does burn me because it's been multiple injuries now from him, and I think you'll be fine with Kelce. Don't trade him. I was saying earlier that I think he could be if I was looking to get Kelce, I would check in on an owner to see how panicked they are. DJ could be the guy we all thought he was. It's now or never for him. Absolutely now or never. Worried about the split. You know what? I don't want to do any victory laps. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm going to take my losses, and if we're correct about things, great. We're correct about things. It's just one game. But the usage last night in Detroit between the 2 backs did not surprise me one bit. I've always been hesitant to tell people to draft Gibbs as RB12, RB13 as their RB1. I think he is the better back. I think he's more explosive. He showed that. He did some really good things last night in his first NFL game. They like Montgomery. I think he's going to be the guy that is the 1st and 2nd down guy more so than Gibbs. I think Gibbs is going to catch more passes. I think they'll both get red zone touches, but I think Montgomery's the goal line back. If this plays out like last year, where Swift is Gibbs and Montgomery is Jamal Williams, Montgomery's the guy that you want. He's the guy that you want. I know everybody was freaking out last night on Twitter about the backfield and the usage. It's just one game. Over time, talent could overtake Montgomery, and they are giving Gibbs a little bit more, but I wouldn't sell Gibbs. Even though I feel like this could be how it plays out all year long, I think that I would view as a buy low candidate. Skyy Moore, buy low candidate. I'm not in on Kadarius Toney, but, knock on the door. It's like a stock market, highs and lows. Nobody's going to want to trade Gibbs when he has a 3-touchdown game, but people may be willing to trade him. They saw it on primetime. They see people complaining about the usage. It's very possible that they decide to it's possible. Like I don't want to get into it too much. It does kind of rattle me a little bit because I want Gibbs to get more touches. He deserves those more touches. Like watching the usage last night did bother me, but again, at the same time, I'm not shocked because this is how Detroit ran things last year, and they may just run things again that way. But don't sell and panic right away. I would be looking to maybe knock on the door and see. I did have a couple more props. I had some touchdown props here for you guys. The obvious ones at the bottom that you can't take as singles. I put them in a parlay, maybe a little 3-leg parlay here with Eckler getting the end. Eckler, nobody has more touchdowns than Eckler over the last 2 years. So Eckler finding the end zone, but you don't want to take him as a single at minus 145. That's not super appealing. Chubb, right? We know about Chubb, a double-digit touchdown machine, right? We just talked about him. Derrick Henry, same sort of deal. So those 3 guys to find the end zone, receiving, rushing, or whatever it may be, plus 388 over at Bet365. I got the best possible number here on the left for these guys using our prop shop. Jamal Williams is like minus 145 at DraftKings, but BetMGM has plus 150 for the guy who led the NFL in red zone rushing attempts and rushing touchdowns last year. So Jamal Williams at plus 150. And I actually have in our bet tracker, I forget the numbers now, 8-1 for 2 touchdowns and 40-1 for 3 touchdowns. There's no Alvin Kamara. I know it's a tough defense to run on, right? The Titans, you definitely want to throw on them, but he's going to be the goal line back there. Kendra Miller's not going to play. Alvin Kamara is suspended. It's going to be Jamal Williams when they get in there. It's not going to be Taysom Hill. Stop it with that nonsense. Taysom Hill's finished. And if we do see Taysom Hill getting some red zone rushing attempts, my goodness, it's just going to be one of the worst things I've ever seen. Dotson at plus 235 for a touchdown, right? We talked about his usage inside the red zone last year, just as many end zone targets, 4 fewer red zone targets, but 5 fewer games. Calvin Ridley at plus 140. I think that we're going to see Trevor Lawrence, man. He's going to have a heck of a season. I think he's in the conversation for MVP. That would be like my dark horse. And it's not even really a dark horse. People are betting on Justin Fields for MVP. Is the most bet player to win MVP, according to a tweet I saw from DraftKings. They're just not going to have the record. So the Jags will have the record. Calvin Ridley's going to go after him early and often. I think in DFS, he's going to be chalky. You maybe want to go Kirk and DFS if you want, even though he's not on the field in 2 wide receiver sets there and throw preseason. But Ridley, I really like his catch prop too at 4.5. It's just juice. Bijan Robinson, plus 119. Good matchup against Carolina. Carolina is going to miss some wide receivers. Offensive line is not great. Bijan Robinson, I think he's going to get some work inside the goal line there at plus 119. Rachaad White at plus 180. I think we're going to see a bell cow season from Rachaad White. 50 grabs last year as a rookie. No Leonard Fournette stealing those third down situations and goal line carries that we saw at times last year. Rachaad White was already talked about from offensive coordinator Dave Canales moving over from Seattle to Tampa Bay and talking about him as a bell cow back, getting the ball in his hands in space. And I think that they'll have some better concepts of running the football. They didn't do a good job of running the football last year. They slowed the pace down. I actually like Madison inside that same game as well. And then with some picks on the way out here, here we go. Jags 5 to cover. I know it's a road game, divisional matchup. Anthony Richardson, I did give him a little bit of love earlier. I have him ranked at number 12 as a quarterback play. I would actually play him over Deshaun Watson. I would play him over Dak. Geno and Daniel Jones are guys that I would play over Anthony Richardson, but rookie quarterback that didn't impress us too much, right? His completion percentage was 45%, no touchdowns out of 42 quarterbacks who tossed the ball 25 times. He had the worst yards per pass attempt, and the completion percentage we talked about was just awful. There was no design runs, which I think makes him interesting in fantasy, but I like this Jacksonville team. As I mentioned, they're for real. It's a defense that can get after the quarterback, and man, Trevor Lawrence is going to light him up. I expect the Jags, who had a top 10 offense last year, to get to 30 points. And I don't think that the Colts are going to get to 24. So 5 points there. Philly, we talked about this with Randle earlier. Tough spot. Foxborough is a really tough spot to go play on the road. No offensive coordinator. Obviously they have an offensive coordinator, but Steichen is gone, right? So there could be some rust offensively. Didn't see Hurts playing any preseason games, any snaps. Typically, these quarterbacks, they have a little bit of, we saw that Jared Goff in the first series or two last night, and he talked about it after the game. Maybe he thought there could be some rust early, and then they got into a bit of a rhythm. It's the defense. Bill O'Brien, I'm sure, is going to help Mac Jones, and offensively, definitely going to help this. They're being better offensively than they were last year, which was a bloody mess with Patricia and just craziness at offense. But there's not a lot to like here offensively from this squad. Don't know from Andre is if he missed practice because of an injury or a personal matter, but if he doesn't play, this number will definitely move up to 5, maybe 5.5. We could sweat this one out early. It could be close to a tie game, field goal game at half, and I know Brady's there at halftime, and he's going to be firing up the crowd in the squad, but he's not going to come out and play for Mac Jones in the second half. So Philly at -4. The Raiders have won 6 straight games against the Broncos. The Broncos had the worst offense in football last year. Jerry Jeudy, I don't believe, is going to play. Sean Payton's going to do what he can with Russ, and this offense will be better than last year. But I know both of these teams are just not great. But the fact that the Raiders have won 6 straight in this matchup, I think that this is a field goal game, low scoring. The Raiders will hang around. Jacobs is with the squad. Still got Devontae Adams. Jimmy G's a game manager. Can't win the big ones, but he's a game manager. Money line picks. Didn't want to come at you with like minus 400 Baltimore. So Chargers at minus 154. I thought they exposed Miami last year. And, Kellen Moore, we'll see this offense right away, what it does for Justin Herbert. We've seen when we've heard players like Keenan Allen talk about how he's going to be used differently, not just in the slot, deeper down the field. Dallas, Dak owns the Giants. I think it'll be a close game. I would lean to the Giants covering the 3.5 there, but Dak has never lost to the Giants, I don't believe. And the defense is legit. And I talked about the young corners there in New York. I think Dak will have his way, tossing the football around at MetLife. Pittsburgh, this is my upset. I think that the Browns could upset Cincinnati. Just really like this defense in Pittsburgh. San Fran, West Coast team coming over to the East Coast. Both teams can bring it defensively. That's why I got the under at 41.5. I think it'll be offensive struggle for both squads. Brock Purdy, I do like him. I thought he was a good target in fantasy. He was great last year, 6-0 with the Niners, 2 passing touchdowns in every single game in those regular season starts. But ultimately, it is a tough spot for him, and it was a significant injury, the elbow. So we'll see what he can bring to the table. Like the Steelers at home to win the game. Miami and LA over. I would take over 55.5. I really would. I think there'll be 60 points scored. Both teams getting to 30 or so. San Fran, Pittsburgh, the under, as I mentioned. We talked about this game with Randle, Buffalo, and the Jets, and Josh Allen struggling against the Jets, and slow pace with Rodgers. Tough defense, too, to go up against for Aaron Rodgers. And I think we'll see some, definitely some growing pains with this Jets offense. We saw a little bit of it in preseason. We saw Rodgers freak out in Hard Knocks, right? Offensive penalties, things like that. I've heard offensive tackles offensive linemen already talk about the changes and just trying to get it used to the cadence there with Rodgers calling the plays and, changing the plays at the line and stuff like that. I think it'll be, I think we'll see a 23-20 game, which just gets us under that number. And then the parlay here, money line parlay, Philly, Jacksonville, Seattle plus 213. And then a teaser, Washington to win by a field goal here, Baltimore 5.5, Jacksonville, Seattle just to pull out of W at plus 275. I do believe that is a 4-point teaser. And with that, we are out of here. Darren Waller, always hurt. Deesh, I know, right? Already. So that is a bit of a risky prop there at 4.5. Maybe you want to stay clear of that one or wait it out till Sunday. I'm a fool and I already bet him. Musgrave or Muth? Yeah, due to Watson being ruled out. That's a good question. That is a really good question. I think that the start for Musgrave is, I think it's a touch risky. I think I would roll with Pat Freiermuth, but these guys were pretty close to my rankings. I think I have Pat Freiermuth at 13 and I had Musgrave at 20. And with Watson ruled out, I will touch him up, move him up a couple spots. Man, I think I would go with Freiermuth, man. Alex, I think I would go with Freiermuth, but it's a good question. And Musgrave is in play. He is in play. He ran a lot of routes on Love's dropbacks. You mentioned no Watson. Dubs is going to play, but he hasn't been really practicing in full. You got a young slot wide receiver as well in Jaden Reed. I would go with Freiermuth, but I don't think these guys are going to be separated by too much. I just think there may be a better opportunity for a Freiermuth touchdown. We'll see. Kenny Pickett may target him in the slot, but this is going to be a run-first offense. Yeah, we should be worried. I think we're having some internet issues. I think we're in some storms in my area as well. So it's a little bit choppy, but we're going to get out here. We'll get these last couple questions and we'll roll through. We'll finish up. Worried about, yeah, I am worried. Oh, 100%. I mean, I can't tell if he's going to play or not. I don't know. Not a doctor. Didn't play today because of a hamstring. I'm concerned. But we should know. Actually, that's a Sunday night football game. You got to have a backup plan. I don't know what we talked about yesterday with some of the tight ends that are probably owned. Musgrave was one of those guys. I'd rank them like this: Higbee, Okonkwo, Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, Juwan Johnson, Schultz, Sam Laporta. I thought he looked great yesterday. This guy is going to be ranked as top 12 tight end the rest of the way for me. Dulcich, Everett, Ferguson, Hunter Henry, Luke Musgrave. So I would bump Musgrave up a touch here now. I think the guys that you can go after, maybe Juwan Johnson. I think you can go after Dulcich. And then it would go Musgrave, and then it would go Ferguson. I think the Eagles will struggle against tight ends all year long. Goddard was kind of ripping them up in camp. So Hunter Henry, you're kind of just hoping for a touchdown there. You need to have somebody on backup plan because that's Sunday Night Football, and you may not know until an hour and a half before the game, and then you're panicking. You maybe pick up Ferguson. That'd be the play, I think. Pick up Ferguson, and then you can, if Waller doesn't play in that game, then you just go the opposite way and go Ferguson. I think Daniel Bellinger would be too risky. Start one, half PPR. Warren, Juju, A-Chain, or flex Andrews and start a waiver wire tight end. Andrews, you got to get in your line. You have Andrews and Waller. You have both of those tight ends. I don't think that's really needed. Maybe you can trade one of those guys and improve your roster elsewhere. Definitely wouldn't start A-Chain in the first game. Andrews got to get in your lineup. And then I would go Juju. I would go Juju over Ferguson and Dulcich. Yeah, TikTok boy, I guess, for me. Dak, don't start Russ, right? We're doing this again. I know, I get the question. I just, as a Russ owner last year, and I watched all the games, I was just disgusted every time I watched it. I need to see it first. I get it's the Raiders secondary is bad. Start Dak. Eagles. I would go Eagles defense. I don't think you can go wrong. You got 2 top 5 defense. You got both of these defenses. Trade one of them. Trade the Cowboys. Eagles got a really nice schedule to start the season. You can't go for both of those defenses are going to be ranked top 5 for me all year long. Trade one of them. I know you won't get much, but you don't need 2 defenses like that. Trade one of them. Maybe just get something, a flyer. Go try to get Skyy more. Nobody wants him anymore. Pick up Higbee due to absolutely. Yeah, I know you got to do what you got to do. I don't want to drop Mims, but you can't take a 0 at the tight end position. So that's risky, right? Because we're probably not going to find out about Waller until close to kickoff at Sunday Night Football. And what are you going to do then? You could really risk it, and then you can go Daniel Bellinger if you want. If Ferguson is not available to you, so you have a tight end in that game. The Monday Night Football game, Conklin, I don't think we'll see a whole lot from him. Dawson Knox, yeah. So I would pick up Higbee and maybe just roll with Higbee, man. Tough. Yeah. Russ. It was not great for Russ. You don't have Waller. Okay, I must have misread that. We're really choppy here. We got to get out of here. We've gone super long. I do appreciate everyone hanging out. I want to answer all your guys' questions. So if you're just stumbling across the show, reach out at Chris Meaney on the Twitter machine. Reach out meanstreetsft@gmail.com. You guys have it. I'm here for you guys to help you out. So if you do have any questions that you want a projection from FTN Fantasy, I'll give you one, and we can help you any other way you go. I was trying to look at your team. You don't have Waller, you said. So maybe I just misread that. That was Warren. Right? Warren, Juju. Gotcha. Let's answer this question properly. You need to have Andrews in your lineup. Right? So Andrews, and then maybe one other guy, or flex Andrews. I'm really confused with the question, but I like Juju the most out of Warren, Juju, and A-Chain. Okay, we're getting out of here. Good luck. Have fun, right? Watch some football, sit back. We'll recap it all on Monday. Randle will be with you here on this network on Sunday. Monday, we'll talk some waiver wires, snap counts. We won't overreact. We'll buy low on some players. It's the best time of the year to buy low on some players because everybody's freaking out nonstop, and it's only going to be 1 out of 18 weeks. But sit back, enjoy. Hopefully the winners are yours, and we'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a good one. Cheers.